So today we're going to talk about for our integrity education is when do I say goodbye? So this is basically around the idea of learning to cut a deal off when it's the right time. Okay, so this is, generally more specific to the loan associate. And so we're going to talk through what that looks like. So let's just get clear about this. So when in terms of the specific timing of what we mean by cutting something off, and I'll walk you through that. So when a loan associate finishes the application, okay, an application, and begins collecting documents and connecting and communicating with lenders, this is the time that we're talking about. Obviously, if you're going through the application, that is a cutoff point that you may just not proceed. But there could be a post application shopping opportunity that you say, it seems to all make some sense, but you find out as you go down the road, there might be some things that you need to cut it off. So I just want to make that distinction because there is cutoff points within the application where we just say, I don't think I should proceed. But there could be situations where you get past that and you start to go, okay, I think we're good to go. But you find out that it's actually something completely different. So these are the things as I go through this just to watch for. There's no hard, fast rule per se, but some things that you should be cognizant of or some general guidelines as you go through. Borrower could be ethically challenged. The borrower could have over control. The borrower could be an over negotiator, you find out. And the borrower could just be over their head in this deal, or lender rejection. So those are the 5 things I believe typically you're going to run into. There could be more as we go through. I'll ask you guys to interject, but these are some things to watch for. So the first one is just that the borrower is ethically challenged. So asks you to do underhanded things. That would be one of those things that you should be concerned about. If they're asking you to do something that you shouldn't, that would be one of the reasons why you would want to potentially say goodbye. They are doing underhanded things themselves that are unethical, not honest, trying to withhold information that could potentially cause you to say it's time for us to part ways. And there's always, because of our culture, we have the pattern and the cultural tenet to be candid but gracious. So chances are you've addressed this with them candidly, but with grace. And you find out that they won't change the pattern. I had this happen with a client years ago, owned a bunch of gas stations, and he continued to withhold information from the lender, and the lender was finding things out. When I addressed it with him, he said, yes, I will change and stop doing that, but he didn't. So unfortunately, I had to eventually let him go as a client, which he was not happy with. But there are times when after we address something with somebody that they still proceed doing the things that they should not have done. Are there any questions or comments about that before I proceed?
No.
Yeah, I agree. I think that on that last one though, I think that won't change pattern. I think that's there's definitely got to be some discretion in there. If it's do you even want to give them the chance to turn it into a pattern? On some things, I think you have to, there's definitely in some cases give people a chance, and could have been oversight on their side and benefit of the doubt, but make sure you're being realistic on what really isn't a pattern and just a major character flaw.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's like when I think I was telling Dave about this deal yesterday. It's like I have a guy that just doesn't want to answer the questions in underwriting. And yesterday, I basically just said, "All right, well, if you're not going to do that," because he was asking me to answer them for him, and I said, "No way, I can't answer the questions on your behalf. It's not my business." And I basically just kind of drew the line in the sand. Like, we are 100% ready to let you run off and do your own thing if you're not going to cooperate. And then, what do you know? This morning, I woke up to a long list of answers, so it was good. I mean, it's just, but again, it's if this happens again, it's very well put in there that we're probably just going to move on. It's just we can't keep going through the same challenges with the same borrowers as well.
Yeah, and that's why these are general guidelines. I don't want to make it too black and white because I want to give you guardrails, but allow you to make some judgment decisions with the understanding that you're making a wise decision, obviously, to make sure that you're not putting yourself or the company in jeopardy. So the next one is borrower is overly controlling. Obviously, all borrowers are going to have control and want to have control, and so do we. So that's why I put in there overly controlling. And what I mean by that is they want you to move out of the way. They start making that pretty clear in the way that they're responding. They are wanting to push you really hard to deal direct with the lender and try to get you out of the way, i.e., not following our process. Or just another thing to be watching for is they want to take over your job, essentially. So when you find that if somebody is overly controlling, I had this happen with a young guy that literally on every document, he wanted to try to change it. He wanted to go directly to the lender a couple of different times. He literally was just so overly controlling that it was disconcerting because I thought, if we're just dealing with this on the front end, what's that going to look like on the back end? It's going to get really murky and become a difficult thing. And at the end of the day, be a bad experience for everybody and not accomplish what we're trying to do, is becoming the most proactive commercial mortgage company in the world. Are there any comments or questions about that at all?
No, I think it's definitely a good one. It can definitely sneak up on you though. So I think that's one of the ones that you kind of have to watch for, because sometimes it's easy to say like, oh, well, yeah, obviously, this individual just wants what's best for them. And we're obviously after that too, but it's, I think that one you kind of have to watch a little closer, because you never know when it's just going to go from, they're expressing that they want what's best for them and they're trying to act on it and take over the show.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. Borrower is an over negotiator. So this is also something to be cognizant of and can be dangerous, is they see you as a commodity in the way that they deal with you. They see that you are getting in their way, which is another way of saying they don't see that you add any value. They're consistently and constantly negotiating. Every time you turn around, it's negotiating this and negotiating that and manipulating this document. And it just becomes an incessant, almost exhaustive experience where you just think, gosh, I am just so tired of always having to negotiate something with this person. It could be that they're verbally disrespectful. They could say things to you. Tom, you've had this happen before, is you're getting in my way.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So this is something to be a red flag to watch for. to be concerned about, because again, someone that over negotiates is just seeing you as a barrier to them getting a deal versus someone's perspective of seeing you as the enhancement to get you to where you want to go. It's just a perspective. It's the way people see things. And it's not something that we're going to necessarily change. So we just need to be aware and cognizant of doing it so that we don't get into a pattern of letting somebody steamroll us and deviate from what we're trying to do. Thoughts or comments on that?
I just feel that these people pop up, you know, and I guess would kind of make sense, but it always pops up once we've got terms from a lender. Because you know, like it seems like they're a lot, you know, they're easy. And once there's nothing, or I guess while there's nothing to negotiate, they're pretty easygoing. Even, you know, when you have like the fee discussion, I've had that several times where you can be completely, you know, upfront. This is what the fee is, and it's just like, okay. They don't have the agreement in front of them at that point. But once it's terms agreement, all of a sudden that's when this one rears its ugly head.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's hard. And I know we take steps to kind of flesh that out up front with the you know, the video on the fee agreement. But yeah.
I agree.
It's a really good point, Tom. And I hadn't really thought about that before, that it's almost perhaps manipulation. So I'll wait until I get what I want, and then the colors will come out.
Yeah. I think yeah, part of it probably, you know, yeah, manipulation, just go along with it and then surprise them at the end. And I think part of it is definitely when it's not in writing, it's easy to just say, yeah, sure. I'm not signing anything. So
I have actually, interestingly, I have a deal right now that I had, you know, we already vetted, like, who else are you talking to? And is everything good? Like, nope, we're just using you. We really like working with you. So you gave us, you know, you're the guy. We got to that point, term sheet and our agreement, everything was there. And then I get a call from one of our lenders and they said, hey, another broker just threw this same deal at my desk. Just so you know, they are shopping it. We didn't obviously proceed with an LOI because you were the one that presented it to us first. And so I had to go back to the borrower and just say, hey, you know, we had an understanding that you were working with us. What happened? And why are we seeing this deal getting tossed around now? And it actually turns out the other broker was like, they promised them better terms, but required a deposit before they'd give them the LOI. And so basically it was just one of those like bait and switches. But anyways, it could backfire on the borrower is what I learned on that one, where, you know, ultimately, even though you shop, I get it, but you should also be upfront and honest. And then I don't know what's going to happen with that deal, but what I do know is that the borrower did come out later. It showed up that they weren't being honest the whole time.
Yeah, that's great to talk through that, because it reminds me of these critical points within the process called the power of the pen.
Yep.
Where when somebody is in a circumstance when they have to commit, that's when things start to change. Or I should say that the true colors of the person come out. So when it's time to commit, or the power of the pen, is the moment in time where you're going to see a truer picture of their personality. So those are both really good points to be aware of, to be cognizant of, and to recognize why we have the process that we go through to flush those things out, whether it's upfront or hopefully when we get to the time of the terms.
Yeah.
Borrowers over their head. This is a situation where a client does not have the experience that they need to. They might be disillusioned of their capacity or their capability to pull something off. So this might be somebody that is in over their head, doesn't have the experience, and they might not be willing to embrace that. They might be overzealous. They might be stubborn. So they're just extremely dogmatic in making sure this loans. If you remember, Tom, I think this reminds me of the guy we dealt with on the hotels that was just so persistent with us, even though we kept saying, look, I don't think we can help you. And he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing
Mm.
and wanted us to help him. And I think it was in a smaller market, and he had kind of hotels, and it was sort of a weird.
Yeah, I believe I remember that one. Yeah, and
so this is when somebody doesn't have the experience, or might be disillusioned about their lack of experience. They could be stubborn and not letting something go. And this is obviously, in my opinion, a reason why we might say goodbye. I'm not saying all the time, but the reason why is because what we don't want to do is, as you know, that's just not our culture, is to do a deal where we get done and say, I just got somebody into a bad situation.
Yeah.
I just put somebody into something that's not a good thing for them in the long run. That we have just made money based upon putting somebody in a tricky spot that could get them losing a deal. And, we go, well, Dave, if it's not us, they'll probably get it done with somebody else. So who cares? And my answer is, you're right. They might get it done somewhere else. But our conscience is clear because we just chose not to do that. And you might think, well, that seems kind of rude, Dave. I mean, who are you to say, this is a good deal or a bad deal? And, I think we have enough wisdom and insight, and we care about people. We don't want them to do something that's against their interest. Sometimes people can't see it themselves. They're just so hungry to get something done or desperate to get something done that they can't see could be a detriment. I'm not saying we're going to be right all the time, but we certainly want to be cognizant of that and make sure that we're shepherding somebody along to not put them into something that we're going to look back and go, oh, just shouldn't have done that.
I agree. We're in one of those right now where we had to tell the guy, like, there's a reason why everyone's saying no. And he said he's going to go find his own source of friends or whatever to contribute now. So I was like, all right, well, I can't help you anymore. So I'm going to let him do his thing.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a healthy thing to do at times. Hard, but healthy.
Of course.
And
I just want to add, I think sometimes that like over their head and the over negotiator, I think that sometimes can kind of go together, and people have like a foot in each bucket on that one, because it seems like some of the the clients that are new, but they fit that stubborn not letting it go, and they're newer to the world of finance, and they're like, well, no, the TV told me the rates are 1.8 and for fixed for 30 years, and those sort of scenarios, they can become the over negotiator and trying to negotiate things into terms that they think are realistic, or they might not, if they're in over their head and they've only got 5% down to purchase a property that they need 10, 15, 20% down to do. They're just in that over negotiation mode where it's, no, I'm going to negotiate this to the point where I'm going to find the person that'll only do it for 5% down, or I don't have enough money to pay all this extra stuff. I think those two can kind of collide and become, the over their head can be the reason that they become the over negotiator. I guess
that's a really good point,
Yeah,
Tom.
that's true.
Tom, you remember that the guy that was doing the self-storage deal was new.
Oh yeah.
And he just could not.
He was over his head, but he became the over negotiator.
Yeah, really good correlation.
Yeah.
I didn't really put those two together, so it's a really good insight. Okay, lender consistent rejection. Okay, so maybe some of these other things might be teetered in there, but a good observation is you just go out to market. Lenders just keep saying no. Lenders keep bringing up consistent concerns amongst each other that are autonomous of one another. You've gone past 3 pushbacks. We kind of have a rule of 3 strikes and you're out. So you just see this pattern going on. You probably know yourself, but just this consistent pushback, rejection just becomes something that's concerning as well. And so this could just be another notch in the belt, so to speak, to move you to it's time to move on and just say goodbye to the deal. So in closing, what do we do from here? What do you do with this? We're always, trying to make it applicable and have application to it. And I'd say the first thing is just be honest with yourself first, that your conscience is already saying no, probably. Chances are there's something inside of you just saying, I think it's time for me to just be honest with myself about this and accept reality the way that it is. Okay. That's really important. I've done many things in my life, and including in this business, where I was not being honest with myself. I wanted to deceive myself that maybe this can work. And, or maybe it was my ego that was pushing me, right? Like pride, like, I think I can get it done. Well, let's be honest. Probably not. Know that a fast no is your best friend in this business. Just quick no, move it on. Time to cut it off is just going to be your best friend. So cling to the no, right? We've talked about the power of no, and no is a good thing. We sometimes think it's not. I got to be a yes guy. Well, no, I think it's better to be a no guy. So, and then the final thing is serving the client at times is releasing them, right? It's just kind of the nature of life. Sometimes we think that's negative, but I think if done appropriately, and I think this just goes in all facets, sometimes just releasing people to go somewhere else is the best thing you can do to serve them, and just realize like this just isn't a fit for us. And so I'm going to release you to go somewhere that is a better fit. And maybe it is a better fit. Maybe somebody else can deal with them just fine and it's a better match. But we have a particular match, a particular culture, a particular way we want to do business. And so we're certainly not going to be a fit for a lot of people, and that's okay. And so that is the education session for today of when to say goodbye.